Good morning, Chicago, and welcome into the Kap J.Hood Morning Show on ESPN 1000. And we're streaming on the ESPN Chicago app with David Kaplan and Jonathan Hood with you. We got Shay and we got Jay Moore. We have you here on this Deal Breakers Thursday. It's also a Tom Thayer Thursday here on the home of the Bears, ESPN 1000. A few moments ago, we had breaking news that Pedro Grifol was fired by the Chicago White Sox. As we went through the records during the break, Cap, we're talking about Grifol, who went 61-101 in 2023, and he ends his tenure 28-89. Worst team in Major League Baseball, one of the worst teams we've seen in Chicago sports, and he was let go on the Sox off day. And so not a surprise that it happened. We just didn't know when, and we found out it's this morning.
Yep. On the day off, they let him fly back with the team, and then they pulled the plug this morning. So, again, Chris Getz can go out and want Terry Francona or Tom Thayer or you or me. Are you going to empower him and pay the price for what a Terry Francona would cost? A Tom Thayer would be very expensive.
So, again, we'll keep that our eyes on that story. We'll talk more about it coming up at 9:20. But first, let's go to the hotline.
That's where we find the aforementioned Tom Thayer on the CarX Tire and Auto Hotline.
Rattle, rattle, thunder, clatter, boom, boom, boom. Don't worry, call the CarX man.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I have no almonds this week, boys, so I'll be speaking with a clear throat. Unlike last week when I ate the almond right before I came on with you guys.
That was so good. So funny. So we were up there the last 2 days. My question for you is this. I don't remember when you were going up against Hamp and Dent and McMichael and Fridge and Hartenstein that there were all these injuries. Iron sharpens iron. I get it. Why are we seeing so many injuries, not just the Bears, league-wide in training camp among linemen?
Because they don't hit enough. They don't, they're not, we didn't go through all the off-season stuff that they're going through months and months of OTAs and all the, kind of the unpadded practices that they go through. We kind of lived in the weight room during the off-season, got our bodies prepared for what we were going to go through during the regular season. And then when it started, it started. And we were mentally and physically prepared to go through the practices that we were going through. And, it was just the way that I think the transition of business from Ditka's era as a player to the way he, transitioned to our era as we went through the paces of our practices back then. But what I was listening to you guys on the way up here and thinking about this. When I was looking at the highlight tape when we were all at McMichael's house this past weekend, there's a lot of pictures up there from Ming when we were getting ready for practice. And go look at our uniform when we were getting ready for practice. I mean, we were fully taped up. We were spatted in our ankles, our hands and our wrists, and everything was prepared like we were getting ready to play a game. Our helmet was filled with air, because we knew what the impacts and the collisions were going to be like. And, that was just the process that we lived through at that stage of football. And, because Ditka went through it himself as a player, he only put us through the steps of preparation that he knew that he went through, and it was probably harder in some relation to his career.
Yeah, so I think that, Cap, you asked a really good question when we're talking about, what's happening in training camp. It's a big far cry from when Tom played, that is for sure. But, the thing is that with change, my hope is that there's sharpness. So when you take a look, for instance, of the offensive line, what stands out most that you think is a positive moving forward?
Fortunately for the Bears, they have a guy like Chris Morgan that plays guys at multiple positions. Because as you see, there's been a couple of guys that haven't participated in practice yet that have, thought that they were going to play a big role in this offensive line. So now when you got Jatari Carter playing at multiple positions, you got Jerome Carvin, a good-looking rookie playing multiple positions, Larry Borum, all these guys, so because you don't know who's going to be there on game day. And then when you think of what the offensive line was supposed to be, they've had more snaps with Ryan Bates at right guard and Coleman Shelton at center than they have Ryan Bates at center and Nate Davis at right guard. So you got to be prepared for anything that can happen to you week one of the regular season when they play Tennessee.
So I sat there the other day at practice. Hoodie's he said he was watching a lot of the linemen. I literally wanted to just lock in on Caleb and just watch his mannerisms and just watch how he conducts himself. And I watched them in a drill where he was, I'm going to say 20 yards from the end zone, 25 yards, and he got the snap. He stepped back. He looked left. He looked right. He looked over the middle, and on his fourth read, I'm watching him scan the field. Bam, he hits DJ Moore for a 20-yard gain. I never saw Mitchell Trubisky go through progressions like that. I never saw Justin Fields go through progressions like that. Are you noticing a difference? And is that something that is innate or taught, learned? What is that?
A kind of combination of everything, Kap. The innate ability for a quarterback to have the patience behind whatever protection he called in the huddle, in being able to go through his reads, even if they're realistically timed or at this stage of his development unrealistically timed, to go through every progression to know where they're supposed to be, I think is real positive. The very first play of the very first teamwork of the opening practice this year, Caleb Williams went through progression of first option, second option, check down. And that's something that, Justin never did. Justin was a drop back, first option, and run type of guy. And listen, Justin had all the confidence in the world in his athleticism. But Caleb Williams has all the confidence in the world in his quarterback play. And I think as a Bears fan, as the development of this offense with the multiple weapons that you have at your disposal, that's what we want to see him do, is to go through those reads. Now, let's speed it up until the preseason game or even the first regular season game. If you have an offensive line in there, then you think maybe there are some vulnerabilities in 5-step drops, then don't offer them a lot of those. You have play action passing, you have screens, you have 3-step drops, you have immediate release of the football according to the route called and the protection offered you. So we're not going to ask the offensive line or Shane Waldron or any of these guys to do unrealistic, things that they don't have the capability of doing right now, to put Caleb in the most quarterback confidence position he can be in. So I'm encouraged by what I see out of Caleb every day. But, when reality sets in Buffalo and there's crowd noise and you look at his command of the cadence and the offensive line, I think we'll get a better thermometer indicator of where things are at this point in the preseason.
Super Bowl champion, color analyst for the Chicago Bears, Tom Thayer, with us here on the Kap and J.Hood Morning Show. What did you think of the new alignment for the special teams for the kickoff?
I like it. I was so disappointed in the lack of returns last year in the Super Bowl that I kept saying to myself, something's got to change. And whether it's the way they line these guys up to get the ball into the hands of playmakers a little bit more, I'm more interested to see, and as vanilla as it was in the first Hall of Fame game, I'm sure every special teams coordinator around the league is studying that first game to see, okay, what can we create? What is the type of personnel we want to use? Are we going to have point of attack returns, or are we going to have misdirection returns? All these types of things that have to play into the mind of special teams coordinator and how they're going to try to develop the biggest returns or give you the best option to be successful. And then you have to kind of get imaginative about the personnel groupings, because are there offensive players that are willing to tackle, and are there defensive players that you can put into to get them to understand how to block?
In terms of watching the defensive line, I know much has been made on a daily basis. We got to get Ngakoue or trade for Matthew Judon or see if Hassan Reddick is going to get moved by the Jets. Are you as concerned about the pass rush, because I love the backers and the defensive backfield, or more concerned about the offensive line and their ability to protect Caleb and run the offense?
I'm more concerned about the pressure from the defensive line, Kap and J.Hood, because to me, if you're going to go into a game, you better have at least 6 to 7 quality defensive linemen that can go in there and contribute no matter what the down and distance is. And I think that as an offensive line, like I mentioned, Shane Waldron can intelligently call types of protections that best suit Caleb at his point of development, along with the offensive lineman that you have in there. And then you can keep multiple bodies in there, tight ends, running backs, to be those extra protectors. If your only really premium defensive rusher is Montez Sweat, you're going to see offensive coaches that are going to say, okay, every time Montez Sweat is lined up here or there, we're going to slide in that direction. And as you guys seen over the years where the center comes out and he points out the linebacker they're responsible for, a lot of times you're going to see him point in the direction where Montez is. And now if you have 4 blockers on 3 guys and then maybe one guy will escape late, it's always going to be tough to get, Montez the freedom that he needs in order to get to the quarterback, but also to get other guys free. And with the development of some of these guys throughout the course of the preseason, someone is going to have to stand, head and shoulders above the rest of the group to give them that second option that they can kind of use their defensive skill up and down the line of scrimmage, maybe to separate Montez from, the option of 1B.
I need your help, Tom. Could you please help me with Velus Jones? I need your help with this. Okay, so at the time that he was drafted, I was not a big fan of it because I know that there was those tires started to get bald because of how much time he had at Tennessee as a ball player. And I said, well, how does he fit? If he's not going to be a wide receiver, can he be a special teams player? Haven't quite seen that just as of yet. Now, the innovation of trying to put Velus Jones in a position where he could be a running back, I'll just ask you, how does that fit when you have already in camp Swift, who's very good, Herbert, we're going to find out if he makes the team, Roschon Johnson. I mean, to me, it's a scarlet letter when he's on the field. If Velus Jones is in the backfield, we know where the ball's going. So I'm just trying to figure out his value. Like, to me, if he's not a difference maker in special teams, I'm not sure of the value.
The value to me for him being in the backfield is get the ball into his hands as simply as possible to allow him to be the type of ball carrier he is. Because he's got courage on kickoff return. He's willing to run full speed at defenders coming at him and have those defenders make the commitment whether they want to stay in his path and hit him or they try to want to have a kind of a chicken tackle where he bounces off for 4 to 6 extra yards. And for Velus, if he was the kick returner, if he was playing in the backfield, if he was lined up on the line of scrimmage, say at the wide receiver position, side by side with Colin Johnson, and both of those guys are super willing wide receiver blockers, and they're good at it. So now you're trying to create a sweep lane or a little bit of extra protection for Caleb to run an RPO in their direction. There's multiple ways you can use them. I don't think right now you just want to completely lose sight of them. And if you are going to try to put the ball into his football and into his hands, how easily, how simply can we do it? And let's see, if he complements the backfield and, can he take the place of one of those other guys you mentioned?
Last thing for me, what do you expect on Saturday when you and Jeff are broadcasting the game? Caleb plays one series. We just heard from Sean McDermott that he's planning on Josh Allen playing the entire first quarter. What do you expect the Bears to do? I know they've had some injury issues.
Damn, I hope he plays a quarter. I don't want to see him out there for 3 handoffs and then grab a cap. Agreed. I need to see him come out there and, have a series, successful or not, come in the sideline, get some coaching comments, understand how that process is going to run, get together with your receivers or running backs or offensive line, make a couple adjustments and corrections, get back on the field and have at least another series. I need to see him use his cadence in a hostile environment because one of the things that's really plagued the Bears offensive line so far in training camp in here is a bunch of false starts. And now when you think of week 2 in Houston, it's going to be in an environment unlike any others that Caleb has played. And even though he played in a major conference, he played in a lot of outdoor stadiums and, a lot of the noise escapes from the top. When they go to Houston week 2, that roof's going to be closed. They're going to keep the noise inside that building. And I think you'll get a little bit better indication of how they can improve that part of their game when you take them into Buffalo on Saturday.
Our coverage starts Saturday morning at 8 o'clock right here on the home of the Bears, ESPN 1000. As always, Tommy, we appreciate the time.
Anytime, man. I love talking to you guys.
You're the best. Highlight of the week, man.
Tom Thayer with us on the hotline.
CarX Tire and Auto Hotline.
Rattle, rattle, thunder, clatter, boom, boom, boom. Don't worry, call the CarX man.
When we get to talk to Waddle on Wednesday, we get Courtney at the start and end of each week with all the stuff going on. And then Thayer, what a great week of football coverage, man.
And Albert Brea.
Oh, and I forgot Albert, our guy.
Oh.
I didn't mean it that way. I was just talking about the local people here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whenever Albert's available, it's always good to have him on as well.
Correct.
Never know when he drops in on the show.
That's correct.
The White Sox have fired manager Pedro Grifol. We talk about it next on Kap and J.Hood.